There are many myths about strength training that need to be debunked. This video will explore the common ones. The first is that strength training is all about low repetitions and heavy weights. Look, I'll be the first to say that the max effort method is the greatest method of all time for building absolute strength. And weights above 80-90% are fantastic. Singles, triples, and fives, I'm all for it. I do every week. I promote it. But it's not the only way to get stronger. And it's only one part of the puzzle. In fact, if you look at what some of the top strength athletes are doing, they're mixing in volume and intensity. I'll give an example, linear periodization. You begin with high volume, and then it gradually tapers to high intensity. What about classic block systems, where you're dividing the stimulus completely? Some phases exclusively heavy, others bodybuilder hypertrophy style training. And it's the mixing of everything that yields to the greatest performance gain. And what about concurrent periodization? Well, in that case, you have a weekly intensity and volume day, plus the accessories have bodybuilding set rep parameters already built into it. So you're not lagging in any type of way, it's all included. No matter what system you're doing, if you're doing minimalist or maximized, you're not relying exclusively on heavy work. The exception is if you're running some type of Bulgarian light system, or if you're doing a peaking program. But for most of you out there, for most strength athletes, they're doing it all, either as a part of a weekly or monthly type system, but they're still waiving it. So people need to understand this and also recognize that strength training will in fact get you big overall. Because that's another thing that guys are going to say, oh, it's only about low reps, therefore you're not going to get huge. Complete nonsense. Like I said, you're already mixing in everything. And of course, it's the progressive overload in the long run that allows you to get massive. And if you're a natural, I would say the strength training is essentially natural bodybuilding. So on to the second point. There's this false idea that you need to be fat in order to become strong. Obviously not true. You can cap your body fat at 20-25% if you choose to. You can even be lean year-round. You can have a six-pack and still be strong as hell. In fact, isn't that why there are weight classes? I would say 165, 181, you're going to be pretty lean in most cases, or even in the low 200s depending on your height. But you don't have to be a super heavyweight. In fact, you don't even have to compete to say that you do strength training. And you don't need to have a big gut. It's true that for certain exercises like the bench press, you're cutting out range of motion because the extra thickness in your upper back and also over here. And in general, you're eating more food, you're in a surplus, you have better recovery. It all makes sense. But it's not a requirement. And if we talk about gaining weight, bulking, all that, well, we have lean bulking, which equates to a small surplus and gradual strength gain over time. Or if you're doing a dirty bulk, you can cap your body fat at say 20-25%. Hey, you can even rock bear mode if you choose to, but bear mode is not a fat state. You don't have a massive gut. That's what I'm getting at here. You can be fluffy, you can be really lean, you can be whatever you want. As long as your programming itself is on point and you're recovering in the gym, that's all that matters. Overfeeding is not a requirement. The fat powerlifter, strongman stereotype is not something that you should go by, my friend. So going back to training, the next myth is that if there's no carryover, the exercise is worthless. Usually it's about the big three as well, right? Okay, I'll say this. Progressive overload is the most important factor. As long as performance is increasing over time, whether or not that has carryover is irrelevant. If you don't compete and you're not trying to get better at the competition lift, whatever that may be for you. What I'm saying is that if you raise your landmine press from say 3 plates to 4 plates, and you notice that it doesn't help your dumbbell press or even your flat bench, does that mean that the landmine press is worthless? Does that mean that all the numbers that you added to this exercise was a waste of time? Obviously not, because you packed on muscle to your shoulders, upper chest, and triceps. Strength is strength. And I would argue that if you trained it long enough, say getting to 5 or 6 plates, getting some elite freaking strength, there would be inevitable carryover nonetheless, no matter if it's optimal carryover or not. Certainly you want to be specific with your training, but it's not the only factor. If you get bigger, that allows you to get stronger in a bunch of other exercises, even if it's the wrong weakness, just saying. So I'm not encouraging you to not identify your weak points, nor am I saying that you shouldn't train for carryover. This is what I try to do. I have goals, I try to shoot for them, I want to pick the appropriate exercise selection. So all I'm trying to say here is that some exercise may not yield the greatest carryover to competition movement, but you still improve your performance on that given lift. And maybe you could still use it as a bodybuilding tool just to put on extra muscle. So please keep that in mind before discarding effective exercise. And you can see my video, Carryover is Not the Answer. I talk about this in full detail. So the next myth is that strength training is super dangerous. You'll eventually get snapped up by it. I would say this is a possibility, especially if you're chasing elite strength and you're competing. But I would also state that if you're running a maximized system that correctly manages volume and intensity, and you pick appropriate movements for yourself while addressing muscular weaknesses and taking deloads when appropriate, you're minimizing the risk as much as possible. So in that case, I don't see why you'd be getting a bunch of injuries. In fact, there are some lifters who train in this fashion that are still in the game. No problems. They're preventing overuse. And that's what I would say to that. Minimalist training increases your risk of getting snapped up. Maximized programming does the opposite, in my opinion. It preserves your longevity. Matt Wenning is a fantastic example of this. If you want to hear his perspective, check out the full interview I did with him. He breaks down why a lot of guys are getting hurt, why they're not staying in the game. They might be rocking it for a good 5 years, but after that, they're done for. Could you prevent that? I would say absolutely. With the right programming, you shouldn't be getting snapped up. It's not that strength training is inherently bad. It's that guys are not using the right system, and they do a lot of ego lifting, and they don't listen to their bodies. So in my opinion, all this could be minimized. So now let's end off with the final myth. Again, if you want a part 2, let me know, because there's so much I could discuss. Anyway, the last myth. Cardio kills your gains, bro. This is not true. I would say that it'll make you a healthier lifter, and if you're doing stuff like GPP work, it's only going to make you better because you're enhancing your work capacity. You can handle more in a given session. I think it's very important to include some type of conditioning training, not only for your health, but overall performance. And in the case of cardio, the thing is, you might burn a lot of calories in one session and you'll deplete yourself of muscle glycogen, but if you reconsume what was burnt, you'll be just fine. If you're managing fatigue correctly, it will not impede your ability to recover in any type of way. You just have to assess it. Like, is it hurting your sleep? Is it hurting your nutrition? If not, you're not going to lose any gains. And in the case of myself, I ended up getting the best physique of my life while doing cardio every single day, going on consistent runs, easy doing over 30K a week. You saw the progression right here on YouTube. I hit my absolute best bench doing a fuck ton of cardio. The day before, I did a massive run. Now, when I first started doing the cardio, it was a little bit problematic because I was burning so many calories and my appetite couldn't keep up with it. But the moment I managed the food intake appropriately, my weight came back up and everything was fine. I didn't have any recovery issues and I got stronger in the gym. So that's just my example, but it applies to you guys as well. Stop being lazy. Do your fucking cardio. See my video on cardio every day, bro. Try out the 30-day challenge and eat appropriately. You'll see that it does not hurt your gains. Look at Scooby 1961, another great example. Find a system that works for you, but don't neglect conditioning work. I think it's a great mistake in your training and it's going to hurt your long-term health. And yeah, that's really about it, guys. Those are some of the myths I see online. Let me know if you want a part 2 and I'll see you in the next video.